The top gut bombs in our modern lifestyles that literally drive inflammation. And I get asked all the time about which daily encounters can adversely affect the microbiome and how we can rebalance our gut ecology. And both questions can be answered through one word: diet. It's a major detriment of what bugs are most active in our guts and how those bugs respond to agents that cause inflammation. Plenty of studies have begun to look at how our diet may be chiefly responsible for both the increased gut permeability and the loss of bacterial diversity, both of which bridge the gap between the diet and the risk for depression. What the science is revealing is that people who adhere to a protocol that's rich and healthy anti-inflammatory fats and proteins, they enjoy significantly lower rates of depression. And conversely, a diet high in carbs and sugar is driving the flames of inflammation. And we can even examine the effects of ingredients like gluten and fructose in the body's inflammatory pathways, which has been shown to increase LPS in the bloodstream by 40%. But this can be reversed back to normal when the balance of the gut microbes is shifted, proving that the elevated LPS from the fructose is related to changes in the gut bacteria. Fructose is naturally found in fruit, but most of the fructose we consume is from manufactured sources. See, our ancestors did eat fructose in the context of whole fruit, but only during certain times of the year when it was available. So we haven't yet evolved or adapted to handle the large amounts of industry isolated fructose like we consume today. So high fructose corn syrup, right, now represents 42% of all caloric sweeteners, and it firmly connects our Western diet. So high in that processed fructose to soaring rates of depression. It helps to explain the connection between the obesity and, of course, depression. And although restoring optimal gut flora requires a variety of interventions, it begins simply with a grain and dairy-free diet that eliminates the sugar, the genetically modified foods that invariably contaminate with Roundup herbicide. See, when you follow my protocol I lay out in my podcast, Dynamism Biohack, you'll be making those adjustments to your diet. And you'll be learning about the other dietary and lifestyle strategies that can help optimize healthy intestinal tribes, even a nature walk. See, dietary change is step one because we can change the microbiota dominance within 72 hours to simply change, simple changes to eliminate the triggers to the immune system and rebalance that gut flora. So in this short video, I'm going to summarize the top gut bombs. So grab a pen and paper and take notes. Better yet, after you take notes, take a photo of your notes and share it below in the comment section so everyone can benefit. So here, moms and dads, are my 5 evil gut villains to rid from your family. Gut-wrenching villain number 1, gluten. Gluten from the Latin word glue is a protein found in wheat, but you can also find gluten-like proteins known as Prolamins in barley, rye, and corn. And these are among the most inflammatory ingredients of the modern era. While a small percentage of the population is highly sensitive to gluten and suffers from celiac disease, it's possible for anyone to have a negative, undetected reaction. See, gluten in wheat is made up of 2 main groups of proteins, the glutenins and the gliadins. And you can be sensitive to either of these proteins or to one of the 12 different smaller units that make up gliadin. So reaction to any of these could lead to inflammation with both a biological and a psychological consequence, and often processed with engineered oils and refined foods. Gluten can be a brain and a body poison. Its havoc begins in the gut, where it promotes this intestinal permeability by upregulating a compound called zonulin. So gluten's sticky attributes, it interferes with the breakdown and absorption of nutrients, which leads to the poorly digested food that can then sound the alarm on the immune system, which results in an assault on the lining of the small intestine and even more inflammation. See, so those who experience these symptoms of gluten sensitivity complain of abdominal pain, nausea, diarrhea, constipation, and intestinal distress. And many people who don't experience these blatant signs of gastrointestinal trouble could nevertheless be experiencing a silent attack. Listen, according to the notable gluten researchers, they say that gluten sensitivity can be primarily, and at times exclusively, a neurological disease. See, the neurological effects of gluten intolerance include depression, seizures, headaches, multiple sclerosis, demyelination, anxiety symptoms that are associated with attention deficit hyperactive disorder diagnosis, ataxia, loss of control of bodily movements, and even nerve damage. In fact, the research site greenmed.info has cataloged more than 200 conditions linked to gluten, containing wheat consumption. And of the 22 modes of toxicity, neurotoxicity was found top on the list. So when I recommend a gluten-free diet to patients, they sometimes tell me they have already been tested for celiac disease, the autoimmune disorder famously associated with gluten sensitivity, and they don't have it. Know that there are some limitations in the conventional testing that's currently available. See, most physicians, they order a celiac panel, and that only tests for a small number of the potential immune responses to this food. But gluten consists of 6 sets of chromosomes capable of producing greater than 23,000 proteins. So this testing may be too limited to the point of being useless. In one study, an inflammatory gut response was noted in the intestinal cells of healthy volunteers, suggesting that gluten may cause reactions to, get this, everyone. In fact, I have a saying: when we get outside the blame it, name it, and tame it with the drug approach, and we realize that our body's physiological expression in a form of a symptom is an intelligent, healthy response. In other words, a person or child who has a gluten reaction is not pathogenic. That's a healthy sign. That's a healthy nervous system recognizing the threat, and the body's symptoms are on a healthy adaptive alarm, telling you and your kiddo to stop poisoning. Maybe people who don't react to gluten with a symptom, maybe that's what's pathological, not a healthy sign. See, a healthy person will react to toxins and poisons. An immune-compromised person may not react, and like the frog, will gladly, slowly cook itself up to death of the cook slowly boiling it to death. Whereas the person or the child who reacts to gluten, the frog recognizes the heat turning up and it jumps out of the frying pan. Do you see this? Our system is backwards. Gut-wrenching villain number 2, dairy. Stop fantasizing about cheese, milk, ice cream, ricotta, and yogurt. It turns out we have a decent explanation for the deep pleasure associated with dairy and its best friend, wheat. It's the morphine-like exorphin compounds found in these foods, and it interacts with the opiate receptors in the brain and the other bodily tissues. In fact, if you're struggling with giving up dairy, it's only because you're addicted. And I know this, and it's tough to hear, but if you're unwilling to at least try and give it a chance and really try, I can't help you. There are no remedies that counter the attack from dairy. No medications, no sprays, no oils, no nutraceuticals. You get that? All of that's a lie. It's a myth. All of that magic bullet thinking is there because it's been bought. That's the hard truth. And yes, I struggle with this villain just like you. And yes, it often beats me up, and I hate that, but it's worth struggling through from the demonic oppression called the dairy villain. Be gone, even villain. See, there's a rapidly growing literature, even in the conventional medicine, that supports that the immune responses to the protein casein in dairy, primarily cow, as playing a role in conditions ranging from depression to, get this, schizophrenia. That's not to say that dairy is an evil villain for everyone, or that all dairy is a problem for some. In my experience, reintroduction of dairy after, say, a month of elimination is enough to tell which camp you fall in. In fact, I have had patients report vomiting upon re-exposure to something they had eaten dairy for decades. So to start, I'll be asking you to quit dairy for at least 30 days and show you how to return to it if you are able, and which type of dairy is okay, because there's a difference. but you must be willing to take the Begone Evil Dairy Villain challenge for at least 30 days. Gut-wrenching villain number 3, GMOs. In the past few years, many scientists have begun to explore the impact of herbicides such as Monsanto's Roundup glyphosate on the human gut microbiome. And glyphosate is used in more than 750 products, and it plays a large role in production of genetically modified crops such as soy, canola, and corn. And unfortunately, it's even found in non-GMO foods like wheat and oats because it's used as a pre-harvest. It's a drying agent that's used to prime the soil for a new crop. And as it turns out, this chemical, it's very active in disrupting the beneficial bacteria by way of its impact on this shikimate pathway from the Japanese flower shikimi. It's an important metabolic route that many microorganisms and plants use to manufacture certain amino acids. See, those amino acids we need, but that we cannot produce ourselves because our biology doesn't include this pathway. So stay away Roundup. So by imbalancing this flora, the pesticides, the herbicides, they disrupt the production of essential amino acids such as tryptophan, a serotonin precursor, and promotes the production of P-cresol. It's a compound that interferes with metabolism of other xenobiotics or environmental chemicals, making that individual more vulnerable to their toxic effects. Even vitamin D3 activation in the liver may be affected negatively by this Roundup effect on liver enzymes, potentially explaining epidemic levels of vitamin D deficiency today. So the scientific literature also contains evidence that the insecticide toxins such as Bt-Toxin, which is prominently in genetically altered corn, is transferred into the blood of pregnant women and their fetuses, and that this glyphosate herbicide transfers to the breast milk. See, genetic modification of foods, in addition to guaranteeing exposures to pesticides and herbicides, it entails risk of gene transfer to human gut bacteria, turning them into pesticide-producing factories. So look for the certified organic and non-GMO stamps together to avoid this and other dubious toxic killers. Gut-wrenching villain number 4, artificial sugars. Listen, in a different video, I went into detail in the case against sugar. The impact sugar can have on your entire physiology and mental wellness. But here, I want to highlight the effects of sugar's evil twins, the equals and the splendors of the world. Indeed, the fact that our gut bacteria are affected by the sugar we consume has just recently been revealed from studies done on artificial sweeteners. See, the human body cannot digest artificial sweeteners, which is why they have no calories. But they still must pass through our gastrointestinal tract. And for a long time, we assumed that artificial sweeteners were, for the most part, inert ingredients in their effect on our physiology. Far from it. In 2014, a bombshell paper published in Nature proved that artificial sugars affect healthy gut bacteria in ways that lead to metabolic syndromes in the human's host, such as insulin resistance and diabetes, contributing to the same overweight and obesity epidemic that they were marketed to provide a solution for. So for more on sugar, check out my video on the case against sugar. It's an evil villain. Gut-wrenching villain number 5, antibiotics. Most women who developed a yeast infection after taking a round of antibiotics, they're familiar with the idea that antibiotics kill important regulatory bacteria. They think, I'll just eat a little extra yogurt or maybe take a probiotic, kind of restore the dramatic changes that are not easily undone. See, antibiotics invented and studied before our knowledge of the microbiome and the role of mitochondrial dysfunction in chronic disease. So it's never been adequately studied for safety. What we are learning that the effects of exposure to antibiotics on gut bacteria can persist for months after treatment and sometimes results in permanent disability. In fact, HormonesMatter.com has extensively documented neurological and psychiatric conditions following common antibiotics. So antibiotics are a prime example of how our antiquated concepts are driving the recklessness of conventional medicine. They are employed in a framework of us against them rather than the emerging reality that we need microbes and must work with them for optimal health. In this way, antibiotics like vaccines are like drinking poison to kill the enemy, right? With 40% of adults and 70% of children and billions of industrialized farmed animals taking antibiotics, I ask my patients to opt out of this statistical nightmare. I ask them to support their immunity naturally through lifestyle chiropractic care, to shed their fear of infection that has a little chance of killing a healthy individual, and to support their system through a nutrient-dense diet rich in vitamins A, D, C, and the use of natural antimicrobials and immune modulators. So protect your bugs, and they'll protect you. You may think of ibuprofen as a safe and harmless over-the-counter comfort for easing your aches and pains. The same goes for the modern-day antacids such as Nexium and Prevacid. But some people are so lured into a sense of safety and efficacy that they keep these pills in their purses and nightstands for everyday use. But these drugs are far from harmless, especially when it comes to our central nervous system and its relationship with our intestinal tract and to our microbial inhabitants. Briefly, they can promote bleeding, deplete nutrients leading to cancer, increase intestinal permeability, aggravate the immune system, and trigger autoimmunity and inflammatory processes. That's just to name a few. So, need I say more? Oh, I will. They can also sustain dysbiosis, an imbalance in the microbiome, that delicate microbiome that's required to prevent such insults to the lining and the immune system. So combine that with an immobile spine, spinal degeneration, sedentary lifestyle, and you got a recipe for mitochondrial dysfunction, global lack of energy, and the guarantee of sluggishness, moody, chronic fatigue, depression, and even cancer-promoting state of being. I know what you're thinking. I just thought I had a bad back, Dr. Matt. Listen, guys, it's all connected. I can't reiterate this enough. The interconnectedness of the gut, the brain, the immune, the hormonal systems are all regulated by your central nervous system. And it's a mechanosensitive system expressed by the types, the amount, the varying intensities of your all day long tiny movement habits. And it is exceedingly difficult to unravel, I know. But until we begin to recognize this complicated relationship between how your movable spine with its loaded motion detector sensors, which sense motion and transforms it into the electrical signals, what Nobel Prize winner Dr. Roger Sperry called the power generator, like a windmill that feeds 90% or your brain's daily requirement for nourishment. We will not even be able to prevent or effectively intervene for you in all types of issues in your body, like depression, our biochemistry, our hormone, our immune system, our protein synthesis, our gene expression, right down to our DNA, if we don't fix your movement. So for true healing and prevention, we gotta work every day to send our bodies the messages that we are not being attacked, that we're not in danger, and we are well nourished, well supported, and calm. And chiropractic care, along with active sitting, squatting, all-day tiny movement, calms this overdriven sympathetic nervous system, switching it off so your body can heal and regulate itself. So as a society, we can begin to think about protecting the microbiome by demedicalizing birth and infant nutrition. As individuals, we can avoid antibiotics, NSAIDs, glutens containing grains, processed synthetic hormone-laden dairy, genetically modified foods, non-organic foods, and sedentary lifestyle. Promising interventions for depression from a gut-brain perspective includes probiotics, fermented foods, natural fats, and eliciting the relaxation response for optimal digestion, anti-inflammatory and insulin sensitizing effects from chiropractic care, and going for a walk in nature. So this is a term, psychoneuroimmunological approach, and it's likely to represent the future of mental health care. And this approach will compel clinicians and researchers alike to recognize both the inexplorable interplay of various bodily systems and our connectedness to the environmental ecosystem in and around us. Should it surprise us that the developer of chiropractic, Dr. B.J. Palmer, used to treat patients in the early 1900s not for back and neck pain, but for mental health disorders? See, the truth is spinal care, similar to modern chiropractic care, was used in the Ming Dynasty in the ancient Orient 7,000 years before Christ, as documented by manuscripts discovered from ancient ruins. And these spinal adjustments, well, they were done not only for mental health, but also for infants and children, for colicky, for ear infection, for indigestion, colds, fevers, and what they called various childhood disorders. It's all connected. Nature leaves clues, and the life way related to our ancestors is the map to a healthier, more vibrant life. Stay well adjusted, lighten up, move better, and live fuller.